Okay, what we need now is a way to set our pagination parameters so that we send them with our request to go and get our activities. So we'll head back to VS Code, and what we'll do, we'll go back to our pagination file and we'll create another class inside here, and we'll say export class, and we'll call this paging params. And what we'll do is we'll just give this some initial values, and we'll set the page number equal to 1 and the page size equal to 2. Obviously this is just a demonstration and we would typically want a larger page size than this, but this will allow us to easily see the pagination going on. So then we'll go back to the activity store, and what we'll do is we'll initialize and store this property in our store. So we'll have paging params, and we'll set this equal to a new paging params. And what we also want is a method that we can use to set the paging params. So we'll add a new function inside here, and we'll just add it at the top, and we'll say set paging params, and we'll take in paging params as a type of paging params, and all we'll do is say this.paging params equals paging params that we get from the parameter. Now what we want to do is to be able to pass these along with our request as a query string, and we've seen in our agent file we can append a query string if we wanted to on the end by adding a question mark, adding equals, and then passing in the pagination properties that we want. But I want to look at an alternative to this that's easier to manage. And what we'll do is we'll go to our activity store and we'll add another computed property based on what's inside our paging params. So what we'll do is we'll add a computed property, so we'll add a getter, and we'll call this Axios params. And we'll say const params equals, and we'll say new URL search params. And be careful with this URL search params because we do not want to import URL search params from URL. This is an entirely different object and we do not want to use this. So I'm just going to remove it from my imports. The URL search params does not need to be imported. So do make sure if your browser or your IDE did the same thing as me and added it to our imports, you remove it from there. Otherwise you'll get an error further down the line. And it won't be obvious until you're in your browser. I know because I've done it. So what we'll do is we'll say params.append, and we can add query string parameters into this object and then pass this object to Axios. That's the idea. So we'll add page number as the key, and then we can add the value, and we're going to say this.paging params.page number, and because it's a query string, we need to say to string. And then we'll add another param, so we'll say params.append, and we'll say page size, and we'll say list.paging params.page size.toString, and then we can just return the params. And then we can scroll down to our load activities method, and we're going to pass these params to our list method in our agent file. So we'll say list.axios params. Now of course we get an error because our list is not expecting this parameter yet, but we'll go back to our agent file, and what we want to do is take in a parameter of the params. So we'll say params, and we'll say it's a type of URL search params, and we want the one that's just the interface, not the auto import here, so this one is what we're looking for. And instead of using request.get, we're going to need to pass this as an object to our method here. So what we need to do is swap request.get to axios.get, and then after our activities what we can do is pass in configuration as an object. So what we can do is say params, and because we've called it params we don't need to say params is a params and assign it. We could just shortcut this by passing it params directly. But because we're not using our requests method, we also need to pass back the response body. So we'll add a len, and we'll pass back the response body. And let's just bring this down. So what we should be able to do now is go test, make sure that we're sending our parameters up with our request. So we'll go back to the browser and let's just refresh this page. And what we should see now is that we're just getting the 2 activities back from our API. And if we just go to inspect and take a look at the network requests, and I'll just refresh the page, then what we should find is that for our activities request, what we're doing is we're sending up the page number and we're sending up the page size. And that's the reason we're getting the 2 activities back. But it would be nice if the user could have the ability to get more than just the 2 activities back. So what we'll take a look at next is adding that functionality.